Good morning, YouTube. We are back at the 348 Major. The engine's in the car. We're gonna hopefully try and get it running, or at least really close to running, but we gotta move some cars out of the way. Oh, that was weird. The car was like, you.
Like, nah, I want to give you two.
I don't want to be cool. I want to stall for you. Oh, yeah. God damn, that sounds so good.
It's no Ferrari, but it's pretty bitchin'.
I mean, I wouldn't complain. Oh, that sounds great. God, I love that car. That is one sexy beast.
Can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop.
All right, where we left off, we have the fuel drain plugs. And we have a part number. It's the O-ring for those. That's 134233. These are these little tiny O-rings that go on these guys so that we're not draining fuel all over the road and catching fire. As Ferraris do. Ooh, there's... Yep. No more fuel peeing out. So we got Ricambi to send us some new bolts for the subframe to the chassis. So these are part number 16142021, and you can see they look nice and beautiful and pretty, and no one will ever see them until the next time we have to do this. But we will know that they look pretty. Do I have to remind you that this video is sponsored by Ricambi America? That's right. Yes, Ricambi America has provided most of the parts, pretty much all the parts for this job. They're pretty badass. Use the code NGS10. You're gonna get 10% off your entire order. They're hooking you guys up because they're awesome, and they've been so cool, so helpful. Tim's cranking down on the bolts that we just replaced, so we got the new bolts in there. So if you remember when we were disassembling, we bent the crap out of this.
Get the Sawzall. I was wondering why it was getting tighter as I loosened it up.
Yeah, that is there. See, it's bent. That's bad. Yeah, our bad. And so we had to get a new one. This is part number 139800, and it's a stud that goes for like the shift linkage and stuff.
Yeah, don't bend that one.
Yeah, we're not gonna bend it. It was very expensive. We're gonna clean up the threads because when we put all that torque on the stud and bent it, probably marred up the threads a little. So
Yeah, we probably should have thought about that while it was still on the stand.
yeah, it would have
or
been easier
it
to
was
deal
on
with.
the bench.
Yeah, well.
That's what happens when you don't pay a professional technician. When I'm doing thread cleaning, especially on aluminum parts, I have these re-threading dies, far less aggressive than your
Like a tap or
traditional
something,
tap,
yeah.
which is for thread cutting. Sometimes when you've got cross-threaded threads and you run a straight up tap through there, if it's bad enough, you can end up causing more harm than good. Because it's a cutting die, so it will go where it feels that it wants to go regardless of where it needs to go. This being much more mellow, this will just bind right up. I will actually end up breaking this shaft off, and it'll be stuck in there before it will do any significant cutting and damage in there. So I like that because it's almost like running a bolt through there. It gives you a chance of really cleaning it and reshaping the threads without accidentally cutting and ending up with a cross thread and having to helicoil it. I will use lubricant with these. Like usually I'll try just a dry start and just I want to feel with my hand how tight it is. If it feels like it's going to take too much effort to get it to square up, I'll lubricate it and then come in and just like you would with anything else, you know, kind of work it until it's tight, come back, come in and come back and kind of work it in and out a few times, trying to get whatever burring is in there cleared out before just railing it in and either destroying it or breaking the tool. There we go.
There we go.
Great success. Very nice.
Very nice.
Great success. She is number 4 prostitute in all of Kazakhstan. Nice.
You know, just kind of cleaning up the crap that that tool cut out of it.
Yeah, we'll probably put a bucket under here and take a can of brake cleaner and hose
good
it out
idea.
and then pop it out with some compressed air as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, right? We didn't need to have to buy another one of those. Sexy that looks. Oh, your shaft. We had to hook up a new AC dryer so we can actually get cold air again. Since we had the nice AC rebuilt, might as well replace the dryer. So we have to weld up the alternator bracket since it busted. Full disclosure, we aren't the world's greatest welders, or I should say he's not, because I'm not doing anything. I'm just gonna film, but it'll be good enough. You know, it'll work.
This is the tungsten insert that goes into the TIG torch.
Yeah.
This is what actually transmits the electricity to the weld. Typically on ferrous metals, my stainless steels and whatnot, I just grind it to a really tight point, and that gives me a very narrow path of electricity to the material, and that helps me get a really nice tight narrow weld seam that looks nice.
Okay.
But because of the nature of the aluminum, and we're going to be welding with AC current, you actually want a ball end instead. You need a much more aggressive arc coming off to break up the aluminum and weld nicer. So I've done this nice little ball.
Let's see if we can focus on that. Oh yeah, actually looks like a little ball.
Yep.
Cool. All right, there's the offending piece.
It has definitely offended me. In response to a previous comment about my unprofessional welding technique, I decided to step our game up for this project. So I brought out my very important OSHA approved welding safety gear. See here I have canvas Adidas that are very old and probably thoroughly soaked in a myriad of chemicals. Crew socks that are pure white cotton so you can see the holes perfectly when the slag burns through to my skin. It's very important to see where the slag hits the skin so you can immediately wipe it away. You don't want heavy clothes that can hide it because it burns a lot longer before you get it off. OSHA approved Dickies shorts, above the knee, not below. Heavy duty leather belt so the pants stay on. 100% cotton tank top. I believe there's other more professional phrases to describe this workwear, but things are changing in our current political climate, so we're just gonna call it a tank top. But again, very light white cotton, so the second something splatters onto me and burns my skin, I can see immediately where it is and pat it off very quickly. Yes, you can tell that the shop is a nice and cool 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Heavy gloves so I don't burn my hands. And of course this really bitchin' Hulk style welding mask from Snap-on. Please note this is Texas and it is August, so the ambient temperature is at least 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So as far as I'm concerned, this is perfectly appropriate welding gear for our climate because welding creates heat and it's gonna get a lot hotter. So we gotta stay cool while doing such critical work.
I agree.
So I've got a 1/8 inch piece of 4043 filler rod. I just like 4043. Some books and other very knowledgeable internet people say it's a good versatile aluminum filler rod. I couldn't tell you, I don't know anything about metal chemistry, so I'm just gonna believe the internet on this one. It definitely looks almost thick enough to work properly on this bracket. We'll find out based on how thick, gobby, and hideous my welds are when I'm done. The machine is, of course, set up for AC, or for those of us who have no idea what we're doing, they're really nice to put the word aluminum above AC so we know specifically only to use AC on aluminum. Whereas if we were doing steel, stainless, or chromoly, we would switch it to the blue side of the switch, which is DC current. Yeah, after current and during current. So it's very important to make sure you're on the right side of the current when you're welding the associated metal. Also, because this is a Fisher-Price TIG welder, it tells me material thickness and gives me a range here for my thickness, which has like a 40 amp window, so it's very precise and accurate and guarantees no mistake will be made at all. Being that this is a 1/8 inch thick piece of filler rod, and I'm looking at that plate and that looks at least 2.5 times thicker than 1/8 inch, I'm going to say my 1/8 inch sitting is not going to be adequate, so we're going to start on 3/16 and we're going to go on the low side of their recommended range, just so that way hopefully I don't immediately blow through the bracket and make a giant hole. Hopefully it takes a couple of seconds so that way I figure it out before I get a hole big enough that I can't fill it anymore. Here we go.
Yep, now that's why I gotta look through the screen and not with my eyes.
My automatic darkening helmet decided
Not to work. You're like, no, I'm blind.
Now I see yellow spots, so that's definitely going to help the quality of this welding project. Usually it's a good idea to flick it at the lights and make sure that it actually round 2. Now that maybe I can see. Almost made it through that whole pass without chunking a glob. True test of the quality of this weld will be when Tim retensions the belt.
Yeah.
No one else gets that privilege, only Tim. Talents that are, yeah.
It up, Josh fixes it.
Flick bomb TIG welding. I might have to submit this to the Smithsonian Museum of Art, Tim, and buy you a replacement one. It's awful purty.
Round 3.
Yep, ready to give the internet some more stuff to bitch about?
Yep.
Here we go. It's my hope that, like with the previous normal guy videos, where people realize they also can own and fix their own Ferraris, that people realize anybody who has $1,200 to buy a Fisher-Price welder can also TIG aluminum.
Hey, it survived a fall. That's a good sign.
Say, should we give it the drop test?
Yeah.
Say, so good news is, looking at the back side of the weld, we got a pretty tight fitment there, so it looks like my ghetto Northern Tool Fisher-Price jigging table did a pretty good job of holding the part where I clamped it and wanted it to stay.
Sweet.
Either that or I didn't get nearly enough penetration in the weld, and so it's not really attached, and that's the other reason why I didn't move.
Penetration.
Hey, now for the other side.
Look at that, boys. We made one whole pass without stopping.
That actually looks pretty good.
It's almost like you know what you're doing.
Nope. So really what I did there, I was able to get a good grind on that, and so people who know what they're doing when they're welding would probably call that a root pass, because basically what I did is I ground out kind of a crevice between the two parts, and I was able with the torch to just go in there and fusion weld, which is just take the two pieces and blend themselves together without any real filler rod. A couple points I started that burned pretty deep, so I filled it with rod, but for the most part that's a fusion weld or a root weld. So now if I really wanted to, and maybe I should anyway, you can see some porosity in the weld with the holes. You know, you notice it went from a real nice seamless zip, and you'd hear it kind of like shut off and then, you know, splatter and go. So that's where we got the porosity, and this is where some internet geniuses would explain that the proper way to do this would be to grind that porosity out until it was nice, clean, smooth aluminum, and then I'll come back over with the filler rod and lay filler rod in to make sure there's adequate material for that to be a structurally sound weld. But I'm not a real welder. I'm just some jackass in a tank top and makes two parts of metal stick together every once in a while, so I'm gonna say that's good enough because I'm tired of looking at this car.
Me too.
And now we're going to do this really scientific engineering based structural rigidity test.
Tim, put it in.
Well, first we're going to do a stage 1 test. We're going to do the drop forge test, and this weighs about 2 pounds.
Yeah.
This is about from 3 feet,
Yeah.
right?
There we go.
It worked.
Passed.
It passed.
We're so f***ing juvenile.
Yes. I got a light guy now. Look at that.
Yes, I'm a part of the. Oh, and I'm a parts holder now.
Damn, you got 2 jobs.
Right?
You've been upgraded with the double D for a double dose of pimping.
A gentleman who goes by the name Upgrade, which he spells thusly. With 2 D's, as he says, for a double dose of this pimping.
That's what double D's means?
Uh-huh. Gotta get the alternator on there, alternator bracket. Having fun yet?
Yeah, going back together, but actually, no, I'm not.
Just got back from grabbing some lunch. I realized we hadn't had a beer on the channel in a while, so got myself a Tall Boy Miller Lite. Come on, Miller Lite, you know you want to sponsor me. Come on, you know this is some America shit right here. Come on, America. America. It's alternator hanging time. Woo! This is when I just sit in the chair and
No, that
watch,
was him in the truck, not me.
watch and
Oh, you
laugh.
had your moments too.
Yeah, but it was my truck. I'm allowed to shit my pants in it.
Oh This is monkeys in a football right here. Get that alternator in yet, boys? Yay! Alright, we're playing with all the shifter linkage and stuff, and I don't really remember how it goes, and neither does Tim, so we're like, Josh, please save the day.
I don't know how this goes.
I mean, we're just gonna put parts in, and eventually they'll line up, maybe.
That's the hope.
Yeah.
All I know is he told me to put it in second gear.
Yeah, I remember that part.
I have no idea how that works.
The shifter cable is being a little wonky, and I don't want to break the bracket trying to get it seated. So
Yeah. There we go. Looks like we got great success.
very nice.
So we have to zip tie that rubber boot onto the shift linkage so it doesn't fall off and get a bunch of dirt and grime and crap in there. We're gonna install the heater core hose, part number 626-59100. This little guy goes way up in the front of the motor, so it's gonna be a total pain in the ass. Tim gets to lay on the motor. Congratulations, Tim.
Joy, joy.
You are an incredibly sensitive man who inspires joy feelings in all those around you.
Alright, so this thing is turning out to be quite a monstrous pain in the butt to get to.
Here, I'll hold it back for you.
It's way the hell down there on the firewall, and then just to the right of the actual main coolant hose. Tim's knees are in pain.
Some people would say I'm used to it, but
Oh my god. Victory! Alright, now we're trying to button down the big hose clamp right there.
I'm gonna need a ratchet.
Turns out we forgot to put on the other hose clamp, so we had to wrestle that frickin' hose off and try and get it back on. Whew! Alright, we got the hoses finally clamped. That was painful. I did the last one and I feel bad for Tim. He was up there for almost an hour. I was only up there for like 15 minutes and my fucking knees hurt. That's not fun. We're gonna bleed the brakes and the clutch because we're getting close to that point. We're gonna use the Motive pressure bleeder. I poured in new fluid. We're gonna pressurize this puppy up to 20 psi and crack the bleeders, and it'll push the fluid out. Coming out. There it goes. Alright YouTube, that's gonna wrap up for tonight. We didn't get it running today. Like 9:30, we've been at this for 11 hours. I'm pretty tired. So we're gonna get it running tomorrow. We got more fluids to go. Finished bolting up the top end. Gotta plug the secondary air pipes. Gotta get the exhaust on. So we still have quite a bit to do. We gotta get the ECUs chipped and in. So a lot of work tomorrow, but this video is sponsored by Ricambia America, so go visit ricambiaamerica.com. Use the code NGS10 and get 10% off. They've been super awesome. They've sponsored us throughout this whole series and provided us with a ton of the parts. Great company, great customer service, and they send you free candy. And they even have tools. So even if you don't necessarily have a Ferrari or Maserati, you can buy a tool. All right, guys, we're gonna be doing a lot of car stuff. You're gonna wanna stay tuned. It's gonna be sweet.